Good evening, Prosec and classmates. My report is on the case of Taylor versus Manila Electric Company. In this case, we'll dwell on helping us understand the nature of degree of negligence. So this case revolves around a young boy named David Taylor who suffered severe eye injuries due to an incident involving detonating caps found on the premises of the Manila Electric Company. So let us start with the facts of the case. On a fateful day in September 1905, David Taylor, who was then 15 and the son of an mechanical engineer, was accompanied by his friend Manuel Claparols. The boys ventured to the Isla del Provisor, the site of Manila Electric Company's power plant. The purpose of the boys were to seek out an employee named Murphy, who had promised to craft a cylinder for David's miniature engine. Upon their arrival, however, Murphy was nowhere to be found, which left the boys to explore the premises out of sheer curiosity. While wandering, they stumbled upon scattered brass fulminating caps, which resemble small pistol cartridges but harboring the potential for catastrophic consequences. These caps were typically used for detonating blasting charges of dynamite and were found near a dump of cinders and ashes. Undeterred by the potential dangers, David and Manuel collected the caps, intending to bring them home. And along the way, they met Jessie Adrian, a 9-year-old girl, and invited her to join their experiment. However, this experiment turned ill fated because upon successfully opening one of the caps and finding a yellowish substances inside it, David ignited the content using matches. Thereafter, an explosion ensued, which led to Jessie Adrian receiving a slight cut in the neck. Manuel, on the other hand, suffered burns and wounds to his hands. The force of the blast propelled metal particles into David's face, resulting in grievous injuries. David's eye bore the brunt of the impact, necessitating its immediate surgical removal by skilled physicians. Now that we know the facts of the case, let's look at the ruling of the courts. So, amidst the legal proceedings, the lower court found the Manila Electric Company, or the defendant, liable for negligence. It rejected the claims of contractor responsibility. The plaintiff and the trial judge also invoked relevant articles of the Civil Code to establish liability, emphasizing fault or negligence. Upon appeal, the appellate court sided with the defendant. It contended that the trial facts do not substantiate liability under the specified articles. Additionally, the appellate court demanded stringent proof of damages, negligence, and direct causation. This argument set the stage for this review. So, the pivotal question here, or the issue of the case, is whether or not the Manila Electric Company or the defendant bore liability for the severe injuries inflicted upon the plaintiff or David Taylor for damages. And in deciding this case, the court took meticulous steps to establish negligence, analyze its degree, and ultimately determine the liability. So first is in establishing negligence. So when the courts establish negligence, or when the court tried to establish negligence in this case, it drew from legal proceedings such as that of Railroad Co. versus Stout. So in this case, the court held the defendant or Railroad Co. responsible for injuries caused by its negligence despite the plaintiff being labeled a trespasser. It argued that the defendant, by permitting visitors to its mine, implicitly assumed responsibility for their safety, paralleling U.S. cases like Turntable and Torpedo. Applying this jurisprudence to this case, the court unequivocally condemned the defendant's negligence, in this case, Meralco's negligence, in leaving the dangerous caps exposed. This is regardless of the plaintiff's or David and his friends' legal status as a trespasser. Now that the negligence has been established, let us try to look at how the court analyzed said degree. So, in doing this, the court examined the actions of both parties, and it held that we are of opinion that under all the circumstances of this case, the negligence of the defendant in leaving the caps exposed on its premises was not the proximate cause of the injury received by the plaintiff, which therefore was not attributable to the negligence of the defendant. On the other hand, we are satisfied that it was the plaintiff's action in cutting open the detonating cap and putting match to its contents as the proximate cause of the explosion and of the resultant injuries inflicted upon the plaintiff. Furthermore, we are satisfied that the plaintiff in this case had sufficient capacity and understanding to be sensible of the danger to which he exposed himself when he put the match to the contents of the cap. His age, 15 years old, and his experience being trained and having a short number of years worked qualified him to understand and appreciate the necessity for the exercise of that degree of caution which would have avoided the injury which resulted from his own deliberate act. Simply saying, this to establish a degree of negligence, while the court acknowledged that it was indeed Meralco's fault, the court also pinpointed David's decision to ignite the caps as the proximate cause of the tragic accident. Now that the degree of negligence has already been determined or has already been analyzed, let us now go and discuss the answer for the issue, which is whether the defendant was liable to the plaintiff. So, in determining the liability, the court applied the principle of proportional damages, which involves distinguishing between the accident itself and the actions of the injured party contributing to their own harm. To illustrate, this principle states that if the injured party's actions are integral to the occurrence of the accident, then they cannot recover damages. However, if their actions merely contribute to their own injury alongside the occurrence, then they may recover damages. However, this amount or the damages rather would be reduced by an appropriate amount to account for their imprudence. So finally, the court concluded that David's deliberate and reckless actions were integrally linked to the accident, and thus this absolves the defendant or Meralco of full civil responsibility. The court overturned the lower court's judgment and remanded the case for further proceedings. The case of David versus Manila Electric Company highlights an important principle that negligence is not solely defined by one's party's actions, but involves an analysis of the entire chain of events leading to the harm. In this case, the court's decision underscores the significance of weighing each party's contribution to the incident and the resulting harm. It serves as a reminder that negligence can be multifaceted, and assessing its degree requires a comprehensive examination of the facts and circumstances surrounding the case. So, this ends my report, and thank you everybody for listening.